The galaxy had grown accustomed to underestimating humanity, dismissing Earth as a backwater planet, a minor curiosity best left alone, while the true powers of the galactic empires governed the stars with calculated precision and unchallenged authority. Yet all that complacency was about to meet its first shock when the Altimus survey fleets detected the subtle but unmistakable signs of human activity beyond their modestly charted systems. For decades, humanity had quietly developed technology and strategic doctrines that were both unpredictable and terrifying in their efficiency, all under the guise of peaceful exploration and interstellar diplomacy. And while alien analysts focused on studying human weaponry and assumed they had mapped every conceivable capability, they overlooked the essence of humanity itself, their creativity, their adaptability, and an unwavering drive to protect what mattered most, which, when provoked, could turn ingenuity into unstoppable force. And so when the first skirmishes erupted on the fringes of the Andarian cluster, a region thought easily dominated by the Lycery Dominion, alien fleets expecting token resistance found themselves facing coordinated maneuvers that seemed to anticipate every strategy, every formation, and every defensive measure with uncanny precision, as massive human warships emerged from seemingly impossible positions, leveraging physics-defying propulsion systems and adaptive shields that rendered conventional assault ineffective. Yet it was not sheer firepower alone that stunned the Lycery commanders. It was the humans' audacity and ruthlessness in decision-making, their willingness to strike at critical infrastructure with surgical accuracy while simultaneously evacuating civilian populations unharmed, a combination of efficiency and moral calculus that alien cultures had never accounted for. And even as the first Lycery dreadnoughts fell, the communications relayed back to the Central Council painted a picture of chaos and disbelief, high-ranking officers arguing over what had gone wrong while the humans, whose existence had been dismissed for centuries, executed precise orbital insertions, tactical retreats that lured enemy forces into traps, and counteroffensives that seemed almost preternatural in timing, all while maintaining cohesion among their scattered fleets. And on Earth, the leaders and strategists who had patiently prepared for this day monitored the conflict with quiet determination, knowing that each calculated move would not only secure their home planet, but also send a clear message across the stars that humanity, long underestimated and dismissed, was now a force whose wrath and ingenuity could not be contained. And as the Lycery forces faltered, divisions forming between those who wanted to surrender and those demanding retaliation, the humans' reputation began to spread like wildfire through the galactic networks, stories of their victories, an unorthodox tactic sowing panic among other empires that had once considered humanity a non-threat, while Earth's scientists continued to develop technologies and strategies even as battles raged, ensuring that every engagement was leveraged to its fullest potential, demonstrating that human resilience was matched only by their capacity to innovate under pressure. And through it all, ordinary soldiers, captains, and civilians alike were pushed to act with courage and creativity, their collective determination shaping a campaign that would redefine the balance of power in the galaxy, proving with every engagement that when humanity fights back, even the mightiest empires must fall or adapt, and that the age of underestimation was over, replaced by a hard-earned respect forged in fire and tempered by strategy, foresight, and an unshakable will to survive and protect not only their own species, but those who had long been ignored or oppressed by the established galactic order. The shockwaves of humanity's first victories rippled outward through the galaxy, reaching corners where alien empires had grown complacent, their bureaucracies and fleets accustomed to dominating weaker civilizations with ease suddenly confronted by reports of humans outmaneuvering entire task forces with a combination of cunning, adaptability, and sheer audacity that no data model or war simulation could have predicted. And as the Lycery scrambled to regroup after the catastrophic losses at the Andarian cluster, other species such as the Arvati Conclave and the Zoran Syndicate began re-evaluating their assumptions about Earth, realizing that humanity's rapid expansion into deep space had been accompanied by an intelligence network and strategic foresight that allowed them to anticipate threats, preempt attacks, and exploit weaknesses that had remained hidden from alien eyes for centuries. While Earth itself became a hub of coordinated defense and counteroffensive planning, the capital cities and orbital command centers abuzz with scientists, tacticians, and military leaders sharing data, refining algorithms, and integrating lessons learned from each engagement to ensure that humanity's responses grew sharper, faster, and deadlier with each passing day. And on the front lines, human commanders deployed small, agile squads alongside massive dreadnoughts, blending conventional and unconventional tactics to devastating effect using diversionary attacks, decoys, and sudden strikes that shredded alien formations while leaving key infrastructure intact to maintain political leverage. And it was not merely the humans' mastery of technology that made them formidable, but their unpredictability and willingness to adapt. For in one encounter, a fleet of Zoran interceptors expecting a straightforward engagement found themselves encircled by humans who had leveraged gravitational anomalies, micro-wormhole generators, and advanced cloaking fields to strike from, angles that defied physics as the aliens understood it, forcing them into disarray while human boarding parties neutralized critical ship systems with minimal casualties. And across the galaxy, the ripple effects of these victories undermined the morale of alien populations, emboldened oppressed colonies to resist their masters, and ignited debates within councils about whether Earth should be destroyed, contained, or diplomatically courted. Yet humanity continued its campaign with measured restraint, focusing on strategic victories rather than wanton destruction, demonstrating an ethical dimension to their military might that alien civilizations struggled to comprehend. And as human fleets advanced through contested sectors, rescuing allied species, dismantling oppressive regimes, and reclaiming vital resources, the narrative of human inferiority began to crumble entirely, replaced by awe, fear, and grudging respect, while analysts in every major empire attempted in vain to understand the mindset behind Earth's successes, realizing that no amount of technological superiority could match the creativity, resilience, and unbreakable spirit of a species defending its home, its ideals, and the lives of countless others. And even as propaganda campaigns tried to downplay the scope of humanity's accomplishments, word spread through trade networks, subspace transmissions, and refugee communities that a new power had arisen, one that did not rely solely on brute force but on intelligence, unity, and a deep, unshakable understanding of what it meant to fight not just for survival, but for justice, freedom, and the unyielding principle that those who dare underestimate humanity will face consequences far beyond their calculations. And in this turbulent new reality, empires that had once laughed at Earth's backwardness now face a bitter lesson that a species underestimated for centuries could rise to command the attention, fear, and respect of the galaxy. And as the humans consolidated their gains, repaired losses, and prepared for inevitable retaliation, it became clear that the age of passive observation was over, and the universe was about to witness the full measure of what happens when humanity, provoked and pushed to the brink, strikes back with unrelenting force, precision, and the relentless drive to ensure that their survival, and the protection of those who could not protect themselves, was guaranteed at any cost. By the time human forces reached the Outer Rim sectors, what had started as localized skirmishes had escalated into full-scale engagements that challenged the very assumptions of galactic warfare, for every alien empire that had once dismissed humanity as inconsequential now faced fleets capable of moving with both surgical precision and overwhelming coordinated firepower. And yet it was not simply the humans' technological superiority that disoriented their adversaries, but the strategies they employed that combined cunning, deception, and foresight in ways no one had anticipated, as human admirals orchestrated maneuvers that exploited enemy overconfidence, turning every attempted blockade, ambush, or coordinated assault into a trap designed to dismantle fleets piece by piece while minimizing human casualties. And within these operations, human soldiers and pilots displayed a level of ingenuity and improvisation that alien commanders had no means to predict, from rapid on-the-fly modifications to ship systems mid-battle, to adaptive weapon targeting that countered advanced alien shielding in real time, all while maintaining cohesion across hundreds of vessels and thousands of personnel who trusted one another implicitly. And back on Earth, the political and scientific leadership coordinated these campaigns with an almost preternatural efficiency, leveraging intelligence gathered from rescue colonies, defectors, and deep space probes to stay several steps ahead of opponents, ensuring that every engagement served not only tactical goals but also a broader strategic vision of establishing humanity as a force the galaxy could no longer ignore. And as the Arvati and Zoran forces attempted to regroup and coordinate a counteroffensive, they discovered that every attempt to consolidate power, strike preemptively, or intimidate human allies was met with a response so swift and devastating it shattered morale and eroded trust among their own ranks, as humans executed multi-pronged operations that combined orbital bombardment with stealth incursions, sabotage, and the liberation of captive worlds, demonstrating that their reach and influence were not confined to any single theater of war. And within this maelstrom of action, human diplomats worked in parallel, negotiating alliances with species who had suffered under imperial domination, offering protection, resources, and shared technology, effectively building a coalition whose loyalty was forged, not by coercion, but by respect and shared survival. And as this coalition strengthened, human intelligence operatives infiltrated alien command structures, feeding false information, creating confusion, and exploiting rivalries, ensuring that enemy empires could not unify against a rising threat. While in the midst of battle, individual acts of heroism, ingenuity, and courage became legendary, with captains improvising strategies in real time, engineers creating emergency solutions under fire, and soldiers performing feats that became teaching examples for future generations, all contributing to a narrative that spread like wildfire across the stars, warning any who doubted humanity that they were no longer a species to be dismissed. And as victories accumulated, the galaxy's perception of humans shifted from novelty to menace, from underdog to apex strategist. And even as alien councils debated desperately over containment or negotiation, human forces maintained a relentless momentum, a combination of pressure, precision, and moral clarity that ensured each engagement further demonstrated that when humanity chose to fight back, even the mightiest empires were vulnerable, and that the universe had entered a new era in which Earth's defenders, guided by intellect, courage, and an unshakable sense of purpose, could decisively shape the fate of countless worlds, proving over and over again that the age of underestimation was over, and any civilization that dared test humanity's resolve would discover just how swiftly and completely even the grandest of empires could fall before a species determined to defend itself, its allies, and the principles of justice it held dear. As human fleets pressed deeper into contested territories, the scope and scale of their operations became nothing short of legendary, for the galaxy had never witnessed a species capable of coordinating simultaneous campaigns across multiple sectors while maintaining cohesion, morale, and precision. And while alien empires scrambled to mount a unified response, they found themselves hampered by internal dissent, logistical nightmares, and the sheer unpredictability of human tactics. As humans combined technological mastery with psychological insight, exploiting alien cultural assumptions, rigid hierarchies, and overconfidence to create confusion and hesitation among enemy commanders. And within these battles, human ingenuity reached new heights, with experimental propulsion systems allowing ships to appear out of nowhere, adaptive shields countering previously impenetrable weaponry, and coordinated drone swarms disrupting enemy formations before the main fleet even engaged, while rescue and humanitarian missions simultaneously liberated oppressed colonies, earning gratitude and allegiance that further strengthened humanity's influence. And on multiple worlds, human soldiers became symbols of hope and defiance, their presence alone inspiring resistance movements and weakening the grip of tyrannical rulers, while in the corridors of alien power, whispers of panic began to circulate, as commanders and bureaucrats realized that underestimating humanity had been the gravest error of their civilizations. And yet, despite overwhelming success, human leaders maintained discipline, refusing to indulge in unnecessary destruction, instead focusing on strategic dominance and the preservation of life where possible, demonstrating a level of moral and tactical sophistication that confounded even the most experienced alien strategists. And as communications between Earth and the front lines relayed every victory, defeat, and insight, analysts on both sides pored over each detail, noting that human adaptability, courage, and unity could not be replicated or predicted by any algorithm, for humanity's strength lay not solely in weapons or numbers, but in a combination of intellect, creativity, emotional intelligence, and an unyielding will to protect what mattered most, and in a daring campaign along the Corinthian expanse. Humans executed a maneuver so audacious that entire enemy fleets were lured into a carefully constructed trap where they found themselves hemmed in by gravitational anomalies, electronic countermeasures, and human vessels striking from angles no sensor had anticipated, forcing the alien commanders to concede tactical defeat while their forces suffered catastrophic losses. And as the dust settled, stories of human ingenuity spread through trade networks, diplomatic channels, and the underground resistance movements, creating a wave of admiration, fear, an inevitability that no empire could ignore, and as Earth continued to coordinate these operations, scientists, engineers, and military tacticians worked tirelessly to anticipate next moves, refine weapons and strategies, and develop new technologies that would ensure humanity remained several steps ahead, all while maintaining a moral code that ensured allies and innocents were protected even in the chaos of war. And as the galaxy watched, the once dismissed humans proved that the combination of resilience, creativity, foresight, and an unshakable determination to defend and protect was more powerful than any traditional army, any rigid bureaucracy, or any alien empire. And with every victory, humanity's reputation transformed from underestimated backward to species to dominant force, a civilization whose capacity to fight, protect, and innovate had become a warning etched into the consciousness of every galactic power. When humanity fights back, empires fall, alliances shift, and the universe itself must reckon with the force that Earth had quietly nurtured for centuries, a force now unleashed in full and unstoppable measure. The galaxy trembled as human forces, now operating as a unified, highly disciplined coalition of ships, scientists, soldiers, and diplomats, launched a series of offensives that forced every alien empire to confront the reality they had long ignored, for humanity had evolved beyond the expectations of both observers and adversaries, blending strategy, technology, and psychological insight in ways that made even the largest fleets vulnerable. And as they struck at the heart of the Zoran Syndicate's industrial worlds, the Avati Conclave's fortified colonies, and the Lycery Dominion's command hubs, humans executed maneuvers that appeared almost prescient, anticipating every counterattack while simultaneously maintaining supply lines, rescue operations, and communication with allied species whose loyalty had been earned through protection and shared victories. And in these engagements, alien commanders were forced to witness the unparalleled coordination of human forces, from rapid orbital insertions to precision strikes on critical infrastructure, combined with adaptive defenses that countered the most advanced weaponry they possessed. And as reports of destroyed dreadnoughts, incapacitated command centers, and liberated worlds spread, the morale of enemy forces collapsed, while the humans maintained discipline and focus, ensuring that no unnecessary casualties occurred among allies or civilians. And as human operatives infiltrated enemy systems, sabotaging resources and spreading disinformation, the once dominant empires found themselves unable to respond effectively, divided by fear, mistrust, and confusion, while humanity's engineers and scientists unveiled new technologies that seemed impossible, from quantum communication networks that allowed instantaneous coordination across light years to adaptive shield matrices that made human vessels nearly impervious to conventional fire. And throughout this escalation, human leaders continued to demonstrate strategic restraint, only striking when necessary to protect their own forces or vulnerable populations, which further unnerved alien leaders who had expected ruthlessness. And within these climactic battles, human captains displayed extraordinary improvisation, devising solutions mid-engagement, reproposing enemy weapons, and turning alien advantages into liabilities, all while maintaining cohesion across thousands of ships and tens of thousands of personnel, proving that humanity's strength was not merely technological but deeply rooted in adaptability, collaboration, and an unshakable commitment to protect and endure. And as the final confrontations approached in the core systems of the Lycery Dominion, the scale of human operations reached epic proportions, fleets converging from multiple sectors to encircle, isolate, and neutralize enemy strongholds with minimal collateral damage, while allied species coordinated in harmony with human strategists, creating a seamless web of offense, defense, and support. And as the last enemy bastions fell, alien empires were forced to accept that they had misjudged humanity in every possible way, that the species they had once laughed at had combined intellect, courage, and moral clarity to reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. And in the aftermath, as humans consolidated control, repaired devastation, and ensured that the liberated worlds were stabilized, a clear message was sent across the stars: the era of dismissing humanity was over, and any empire, no matter how mighty, that chose to provoke or underestimate them would face consequences so thorough, precise, and inevitable that their fall would be remembered for generations, establishing that when humanity fights back, even empires fall, and that the universe itself must now reckon with a species whose determination, ingenuity, and moral resolve are beyond calculation or prediction. With a major alien fleet shattered and their command structures in disarray, humanity began the final phase of its campaign, a sweeping series of operations designed not only to secure victory but to redefine the rules of engagement across the galaxy, as human strategists deployed coordinated offensives that combined overwhelming force with subtle psychological and diplomatic maneuvers, ensuring that alien empires were not only defeated militarily but also left with no viable path to regroup, while simultaneously extending offers of protection and cooperation to worlds previously under oppressive rule, earning loyalty and forging alliances that further strengthened humanity's position. And as the Lycery Dominion struggled to maintain control over its remaining territories, human fleets executed surgical strikes that incapacitated key infrastructure, disrupted communications, and neutralized mobile forces, all while avoiding unnecessary civilian casualties, demonstrating a discipline and foresight that alien commanders could neither anticipate nor counter. And in parallel, Earth scientists introduced innovations that blurred the line between science and strategy, from gravitational manipulation devices capable of redirecting enemy ships to AI-driven coordination systems that synchronize thousands of human units in real time across light years, while soldiers and captains on the front lines displayed improvisation, courage, and tactical brilliance that turned even desperate situations into opportunities. And as alien bureaucracies and command councils became paralyzed by confusion and fear, human diplomats leveraged victories to secure surrender terms that preserved stability, reinforced human authority, and ensured that liberated species were treated as partners rather than pawns. And across every theater of engagement, the narrative of humanity's rise spread like wildfire, inspiring oppressed populations, terrifying overconfident empires, and reshaping perceptions of what it meant to be underestimated. And yet, despite these overwhelming achievements, human leaders maintained restraint, carefully calibrating actions to prevent unnecessary destruction while ensuring the permanent dismantling of systems built on oppression. And as the final strongholds of enemy empires fell, entire fleets surrendering in coordinated displays of compliance, the galaxy began to recognize that humans were not merely a military force, but a civilization defined by creativity, resilience, adaptability, and an unyielding commitment to justice and protection. And even the most hardened alien leaders, those who had once scoffed at humanity's supposed weakness, could only acknowledge the undeniable truth. A species underestimated for centuries had combined intellect, strategy, and moral clarity to achieve what no empire had predicted, reshaping the galactic balance of power in a way that would endure for generations. And in this final phase, humanity demonstrated not only its ability to fight back with devastating effectiveness, but also to govern, stabilize, and inspire, proving unequivocally that when humanity strikes with purpose, precision, and unwavering resolve, even the mightiest empires are destined to fall, and the galaxy itself would never again view Earth as a backwater, nor its people as inconsequential. For the era of human ascendancy had begun, and the legacy of their rise would echo across stars, systems, and generations, cementing a universal truth that had been ignored for far too long. When humanity fights back, nothing, even the most formidable empires, can withstand the force of their ingenuity, courage, and unbreakable will. As the dust of countless battles settled across the galaxy, humanity stood not only victorious, but transformed into a force whose influence and reputation extended far beyond the homeworld that had once been underestimated. And while alien empires reeled from the scale of their defeats, humans worked tirelessly to consolidate stability, rebuild war-torn systems, and integrate liberated species into a cooperative network that demonstrated the strength of unity, foresight, and shared purpose. And in the core of the Lycery Dominion, the last bastions of resistance fell as humans executed flawless operations combining orbital supremacy, rapid deployment forces, and psychological strategies that left enemy commanders with no option but surrender. While on distant frontier worlds, human emissaries negotiated alliances, secured resources, and mediated conflicts with the same clarity and intelligence that had guided their military campaigns. And across every theater, stories of human ingenuity, courage, and moral restraint spread like wildfire, reshaping perceptions of alien civilizations who had once viewed Earth as insignificant. For now they understood that humanity's power was not merely in fleets, weapons, or technology, but in a combination of adaptability, creativity, empathy, and an unyielding commitment to protect life and uphold justice And as humans facilitated the reconstruction of devastated planets, integrated previously oppressed societies, and implemented systems of governance that emphasize accountability and cooperation, the galaxy began to recognize a new order, one in which humans were not conquerors for selfish gain but protectors whose authority stemmed from competence, ethical leadership, and the ability to act decisively when provoked, and in the final confrontations. Alien leaders who had once underestimated humans were forced to confront the truth of their miscalculations, witnessing firsthand the devastating consequences of dismissing a species whose determination and foresight far exceeded any expectation, and as the last fleets of the once dominant empire surrendered, their territories reorganized under the guidance and oversight of human strategists and allied councils, the universe itself seemed to shift, the very balance of power recalibrated to reflect the emergence of a civilization that could no longer be ignored, while on Earth, leaders, scientists, and soldiers alike reflected on the trials, sacrifices, and brilliance that had made this triumph possible, understanding that the victories were as much about moral clarity, unity, and resilience as they were about tactical genius. And in this era of reckoning, humanity had not only defended its home but also reshaped the galaxy's understanding of strength, proving to every observer, ally, and former adversary that when humanity fights back, even the mightiest empires fall, and that the age of underestimation will forever replaced by a new epoch in which Earth's defenders were recognized as a decisive, unwavering, and incomparable force, capable of protecting not only themselves but countless others, a living testament to the ingenuity, courage, and indomitable spirit that defines humanity. And as the stars themselves bore witness to this new reality, it became clear that the galaxy had entered a period defined by human ascendancy, foresight, and relentless resolve, a legacy that would endure for generations, ensuring that the universal truth was undeniable. Never again underestimate humanity, for when provoked, they strike with precision, strategy, and an unstoppable will, and even empires, vast, ancient, and mighty, cannot endure their wrath.